Okay, have you ever found yourself, picking up something labeled natural in a grocery and then kind of wondering what a day would be like? Or maybe you skipped a meal, felt your energy just completely plummet, and then boom, your blood sugar takes a wild roller coaster ride. Well, today we're embarking on another deep dive. Well, man, through the trends and health insights. The goal is really to cut through all that noise, and help you get to those aha moments quickly. Our mission always is to make sure you're truly well informed. And this deep dive is powered by insights we've aggregated from the consumers.app website. Specifically, this comes from the Consumers 360 news commentary dated June 29, 2025. It's a fantastic platform, pulls together news from all sorts of sources, and categorizes it under key consumer topics. So let's just jump right in. Our first topic, this one's from Rolling Out, and the headline, it really grabbed you. Natural flavors fraud exposed in 5 shocking food facts. We see natural flavors on practically everything. What exactly does that term even mean? And why is it such a buzzword?
Yeah, it's everywhere, isn't it? And what's really intriguing is how that term natural flavors is, well, it's often used. It's a total marketing magnet. Consumers, people like you, are increasingly health conscious, really looking to avoid synthetic stuff. And natural just sounds wholesome, right? Clean. But here's the thing, the core deception, and maybe the real aha moment for you, the consumer, is the lack of full disclosure on labels. So the FDA defines these flavors as derived from plant or animal materials. Sounds good on the surface.
Right, sounds okay.
But they don't require the specific ingredient to be disclosed unless it's like one of the common allergens. So this means if you have an allergy to something less common, maybe something hiding in that natural blend, you could be eating it without knowing. It's actually incredibly hard to know what's really in your food.
Wow. So it's less about being natural like we think of it maybe from nature and more about just meeting a very specific, maybe even misleading legal definition.
That's really...
Yeah, a bit unsettling.
Exactly. And it points to a bigger issue, doesn't it? Transparency.
Yeah.
Our research, the stuff from consumers research, highlights that food fraud often involves misrepresenting synthetic chemicals as naturally derived. And here's where it gets really tricky. There's often a lack of public records on these kinds of frauds. So tracking them, very difficult. This is especially true for what they call proprietary blends of flavor chemicals, which companies, keep secret. Authentication is genuinely challenging. It significantly ramps up the risk of consumer deception.
Okay, so beyond the immediate allergy worries, are there bigger health concerns if we're eating synthetic things disguised as natural?
Absolutely. Beyond that immediate allergen risk we just talked about, there are potential long-term health effects from synthetic chemicals. Now, a lot of that is still being researched, but it's a concern. Studies consistently point back to the importance of focusing on whole, minimally processed foods, food that keeps its natural nutritional benefits. This way, you reduce your reliance on synthetic additives that might carry health risks.
Makes sense.
And actually, if we zoom out a bit to the wider food industry, there is a growing shift towards prioritizing genuinely natural additives. Things like beetroot and arugula extracts as alternatives to synthetic preservatives. And that shift, it's largely driven by your demand, by consumer demand for healthier, cleaner options.
Well, that's good news, at least. A positive trend. This whole focus on natural components really shows how much we're still learning about food's effects, doesn't it? In fact, the research also touched on some surprising findings, things that might not seem directly connected to natural flavors, but are still pretty fascinating. Can you tell us about some of those?
Yeah, it's a great example of how wide-ranging food science research is. Sometimes it pops up in unexpected places. For instance, there are advancements in food pairing research showing that ingredients sharing flavor compounds often pair well together. And we're even seeing cutting-edge AI, advanced algorithms being used to suggest food combinations. Though, interestingly, some research suggests that often this isn't really some huge culinary breakthrough, but more like trivial couplings of ingredients that are already pretty similar. And on a completely different note, the research showed something surprising about dogs. Recent findings suggest blueberries are actually preferred in dog diets and might even offer some protective benefits against heat stress.
Blueberries for dogs?
Yeah.
Really?
Now, they didn't significantly change oxidative status from exercise in the study, but they were associated with lower resting creatine kinase levels. So it suggests potential benefits that definitely need more looking into. It just goes to show how much is still being explored, all across the board.
That is fascinating. From what's supposedly natural to what we actually eat and how it impacts us. Wow, it's complex. Okay, let's shift gears. Our next topic comes from Women's Health on MSN.com. How does fasting impact your fertility? Experts dive into the latest research. Fasting has gotten so popular lately, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But what's its specific link to something as fundamental as fertility?
Right. This is a really critical area, especially with rising obesity rates playing a role in fertility issues. What's fascinating or maybe complex is the delicate balance here. Fasting can, in some cases, positively impact fertility, particularly for people dealing with obesity or hypertension or high cholesterol, mainly because it helps with weight loss. We know obesity often affects reproductive function, right? And dietary changes leading to weight loss can significantly improve things like sperm quality and reproductive health in males. For example, a recent 2025 study on obese male mice gave us a peek into how this works on a molecular level. It showed that switching them from a high-fat diet to a normal one improved sperm motility and testicular health. And it did this by regulating key proteins involved in metabolism.
So, potentially beneficial for some, especially where weight loss is a factor. But what about the flip side, particularly for women? Is more fasting always better?
That's a crucial point. No, not always. While metabolic health can improve, prolonged or extreme fasting can actually paradoxically negatively impact female fertility. It can mess with hormonal balance, disrupt menstrual cycles. So a balanced, kind of mindful approach is absolutely key. And this brings up an important question, how do we integrate these kinds of interventions into public health strategies? From a public health standpoint, while fasting could be a cost-effective tool for boosting fertility rates in obese populations, it really has to be carefully balanced with individual nutritional needs. You've got to avoid those negative effects.
And just to clarify, when we talk fertility rates, we often hear about the total fertility rate, the TFR. That's basically the average number of kids born to a woman over her lifetime, right?
Precisely, yeah. And fasting research fits into that bigger picture of societal fertility trends and health interventions. What's really compelling are the potential molecular mechanisms involved, things like improved glucose metabolism, altered protein expression, and reproductive functions. It's deep stuff. And speaking of assessment, while it's not directly tied to fasting itself, there are recent tech advancements, like AI using deep learning for non-invasive fertility detection. These tools are complementing dietary insights by improving how we assess and monitor reproductive health.
That's amazing how technology and these dietary insights are starting to merge. Okay, shifting gears again slightly to something I think many of us do, maybe without thinking too much, even if we kind of know we shouldn't.
Oh.
Our next headline is from Health on MSN.com. What happens to your blood sugar when you skip meals? We've all done it, right? That midday crash after skipping lunch, and then you just want to devour everything in sight. What's actually happening physiologically?
Oh, yeah, it's super common. But it can really mess with your blood sugar. When you skip a meal, your blood sugar levels can drop. That's called hypoglycemia, basically, low blood sugar. Then when you finally do eat, maybe hours later, your body often overcompensates and you get the subsequent spike. So keeping a consistent meal schedule, really crucial for stability.
Right, that roller coaster effect you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And what about specific meals? Like breakfast, we always hear that's the most important one. Does the science back that up here?
It absolutely does. Skipping breakfast specifically seems to lead to bigger blood sugar spikes later in the day. Studies suggest that people who skip breakfast often have less efficient sugar handling by their body throughout the rest of the day. It creates this ripple effect, impacting overall stability. This really highlights why regular meal spacing, ideally eating something every 3 to 5 hours, is so vital to prevent those major swings.
That's a really key distinction then. So what's the difference between this kind of unplanned skipping, which sounds pretty bad, and something like intermittent fasting, which is more structured?
Yeah, that's a really important difference to make. Intermittent fasting, that's a structured approach. It involves deliberate cycles of fasting and eating. And when it's done correctly, it can actually have positive effects on blood sugar, like improving insulin sensitivity. But contrast that with just unplanned, erratic skipping of meals. That just leads to unpredictable blood sugar levels, and honestly, it's generally not recommended for managing blood sugar, especially if you have diabetes. Recent scholarly research, the kind consumers research looks at, consistently shows that meal skipping, particularly breakfast, disrupts your glycemic control and leads to poorer glucose tolerance.
Okay, so for listeners trying to keep those energy levels steady, what's the practical takeaway? What if you just can't manage full meals regularly?
Good question. If full meals aren't always feasible, having smaller, balanced snacks can really help. Think combining some carbs, protein, and healthy fats. That approach helps prevent those drastic highs and lows you get from skipping entirely, and it ensures a steadier supply of nutrients. Overall, health experts generally advise against skipping meals. They really advocate for consistent schedules, prioritizing breakfast, and using smart snacking to promote better metabolic health.
That makes total sense. Okay, now let's talk about something small but almighty. Nuts. Our next headline is from The Healthy at Reader's Digest on MSN.com, and it's the 9 healthiest nuts worth eating from leading clinical nutrition pros. I'm always curious about these. They seem common, but maybe underestimated superfoods.
Oh, they truly are little powerhouses. Let's start with almonds. Super versatile, right? Packed with fiber, protein, vitamin E, healthy fats. They're great for heart health, gut health, can even help with weight management, and potentially lower risks of things like diabetes and certain cancers.
Wow, almonds are busy.
They are. And then you have pistachios, which are interesting because they're actually lower in calories and fat compared to many other nuts. We're talking roughly 159 calories, maybe 12.8 grams of fat per ounce, but still incredibly nutrient dense.
So a good lighter snack option, perhaps. What else stands out?
Walnuts. They're famous for being rich in omega-3 fatty acids, also antioxidants, and these beneficial plant compounds called phytosterols. All that stuff contributes significantly to heart health, reduces inflammation, oxidative stress, lowers LDL, the bad cholesterol, and improves artery function. Plus, there are recent advancements making it easier to extract these phytosterols from nuts. They show powerful antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, cholesterol-lowering properties, potentially beneficial for heart disease, neurodegenerative diseases, type 2 diabetes, even some cancers.
It's digging deep into the compounds.
It is, though it's important to say we definitely need more human clinical trials there to fully understand the impact.
Gotcha. What about some of the maybe slightly less common ones like Brazil nuts?
Brazil nuts. They are excellent sources of selenium. That's a mineral crucial for thyroid function, immune support. But here's a key warning. Because they have so much selenium, you really need to eat them in moderation, like just 1 or 2 nuts per day. Too much selenium can be toxic.
Okay, note taken. 1 or 2. And cashews.
Cashews are great too. They're particularly rich in copper, which is vital for nerve function and immune support. Plus, they have healthy fats, protein, magnesium, zinc. Good for overall health.
It's incredible how much goodness is packed into each little nut. Are there any tech advancements in how we assess nuts nutritionally or maybe for safety?
Absolutely, yeah. We're seeing things like wearable biometric logging devices and, again, advanced deep learning algorithms being used in food science. This tech improves the accuracy of nutritional assessments and also safety checks. For example, these algorithms are now being used to classify pistachio quality or even detect things like aflatoxin contamination, that's a type of potentially harmful mold. So it significantly enhances our understanding of both the nutritional value and the safety of nuts.
That's really next level stuff. Okay, for our final topic today, this one, the title really caught my eye. What is food noise and how do you stop it? This is from Verywell Health on MSN.com. What exactly is food noise and how relevant is it to, our everyday eating habits?
Food noise, it's such a relatable concept, isn't it? And understanding it can be a real aha moment for a lot of people. It basically refers to that persistent internal chatter, all those thoughts about food swirling around in your head. It includes everything from diet culture messages we absorb, social media influences, personal cravings, even feelings of guilt around food. And this constant mental preoccupation, this noise, it can easily overshadow your body's natural hunger and fullness cues, which often leads to unhealthy choices. It's important to distinguish it from, say, binge eating disorder. BED involves recurrent episodes of eating large amounts of food. Food noise is more about that persistent mental preoccupation, that chatter, not necessarily the binging itself.
So it's like that voice in your head just constantly talking about food, almost like background static. For a lot of us, it might just feel like, oh, it's a willpower thing. But is there more to it? How do we actually turn down the volume on this?
Yeah, that's the key question, right? And it's definitely not just about willpower. Mindfulness practices can be incredibly effective here by encouraging you to really focus on the present moment during meals, like actually paying attention to the flavors, the textures, the feeling of satisfaction. You can start to build a healthier relationship with food and cut down on that mindless eating.
Okay, so being more present.
Exactly. And other practical strategies, things like recognizing your personal triggers, what sets off the noise for you, creating a supportive environment at home, setting realistic dietary goals, maybe even keeping a food journal to spot patterns.
Recognizing patterns, yeah. What role do our actual food choices play in all this? Does what we eat affect the noise?
Oh, a huge role. Absolutely crucial. Prioritizing whole foods. Vegetables, fruits, legumes, high fiber grains can significantly help. Why? Because it minimizes your intake of highly processed foods, which often seem to amplify that food noise. Whole foods help maintain satiety, keep you feeling full longer, provide balanced nutrition, all of which helps quiet that internal chatter and reduce the compulsion to overeat.
Interesting.
And what's also compelling here are insights from online grocery shopping. Research suggests that the way unhealthy foods are marketed online can actually worsen food noise. And it shows that consumers, like you, really desire more prominent and affordable healthy options on those platforms.
That's a powerful link, isn't it? Our digital world feeding into our internal food chatter. Are there other tools or approaches that can help manage this?
Yes, actually. Some newer anti-obesity medications, the ones often called GLP-1s, can also play a role. They work partly by managing hunger and satiety signals in the brain. And by doing that, they can significantly reduce food noise and lessen that food-related anxiety for some people. It's an interesting intersection of, pharmacology and the psychological side of our relationship with food. It offers another potential avenue for support.
Wow. Okay, so from figuring out what's really natural in our food to understanding that delicate dance between fasting and fertility, the hidden impacts of skipping meals, the amazing power packed into tiny nuts, and finally learning how to maybe quiet that constant food noise. We've definitely covered a lot of ground today. The big theme really seems to be about empowering you, the listener, to make more informed choices about your health and what you consume. Cutting through the complexity, giving you those practical, sometimes surprising insights.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought to leave with, given how deeply connected our health, our choices, even that mental chatter are with the food we eat, what's maybe one small shift you might make in your daily routine starting today to help quiet that noise and truly nourish yourself?
That's a great question for reflection. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. If you enjoyed this conversation, if you found these insights valuable, please do like, share, and subscribe to Consumers 360 for more content like this. And maybe leave us wondering, what aspect of consumer health and nutrition do you think we'll be deep diving into next as science and tech keep uncovering new connections?